Hey guys, Jim here. Today we're going to explore a new acquisition, a new purchase I just received that I'm pretty darn excited about. Kirby Lambert Orion MGT, which stands for Multi-Grind Tanto. As a lot of you know, I've been wanting to get a Kirby Lambert for quite a while now, and each time I think I got one nailed down, it seems to slide out from in between my fingers right at the last second. So this time I got very fortunate and was able to pick this up. It's actually funny, I was texting back and forth like a little schoolgirl with those that we know named the Bob. And we were talking about Kirby Lambert, and he says, hands down, his favorite maker is Kirby Lambert. And I hear this from a lot of guys there. I mean, there are guys that, collect only the absolute best that they can afford to buy $5, $10, $15,000 folding knives. And yet they all seem to own Kirby Lamberts. And everybody I talk to is impressed by the fit and finish. And it's just been that I've never had the opportunity. It's not that I didn't want to, just didn't have the opportunity to grab one. So I'm texting back and forth with him. He says, yeah, he goes, I got a few more coming in directly from Kirby, and I'm going to be letting a few of mine go. I just sent them off to Arizona Custom Knives, and Julie bought them from me. And so I pull up the site, and sure enough, there was 2 or 3 of his Lamberts. And this was one of them. And he says, you know what? He goes, dude, this thing is mint. It's just perfect except for the pocket clip. And it's you would love it. You need to buy it right now. And I just laid out a whole bunch of money for some other customs. I'm like, really, I don't know that this is really the best time for me to buy it. He goes, dude, just do whatever you got to do and just buy it. So I looked, and you guys know me. I don't overspend outside of my play money that I keep just for my knives. So I had a few hundred still sitting in there left over from my, at that time, I think I had like $7,000 or $8,000 shopping spree I just went on. And I went, okay, fine. Luckily, with Arizona Custom Knives, they do that whole layaway thing. Now, typically, I think layaway kind of ghetto, but it helped me get into it. Put I think it was like $300 down to get it. And then I just went ahead and paid it off recently. Went, screw it. I'm not going to wait this out. Paid it off, done. So I finally got it in my hands. Love dealing with the guys over there, Ryan at Arizona Custom Knives. Truly a class act. Great guy to talk to. Definitely check those guys out whenever you can. But here I want to kind of go into why I feel that all of that love for Kirby Lambert and his precision is well earned. I was blown away from the very second I opened up that beautiful Bill's case that it was in. And I said, oh damn, now I get it. Now I understand. The fit and finish is absolutely beyond reproach. And it's still startling to me for the somewhat modest price range that his stuff is in. I mean, I'm not going to say that, the $800 to $900 this model is a small amount of money. But there are makers out there with this level of quality that are easily charging double as an entry level. So I still think that buying a Kirby Lambert gets you into a good value. So let's talk about a few things first. The specifications. What we're looking at here is a lightning strike carbon fiber bolster, which through a conversation I had like an awesome 2-hour chat with Todd Begg last night, just kind of out of the blue talking about random stuff. And I found out last night that it was actually him that brought lightning strike carbon fiber to the knife industry. I didn't know that. Maybe that's a well-known thing that I somehow had never found out about, but hey, there you go. So you've got lightning strike carbon fiber for the bolsters and black G10 for the scales. Very, very thick 6AL4V blasted titanium for the liners. Great lock up on that liner lock. See if I can get it to focus. There we go. And the thing that I love about this is it's like it's one material, like it's one piece here. It is completely seamless. If you go all Helen Keller on it and you're just feeling, got your eyes closed and you're just feeling, obviously you're not talking or hearing anything either at the same time. You just feel it. And it's one piece. You can't tell that he's using different materials. Even on the back side, it's just flawless. So you have a 3.5-inch blade, compound grind tanto with a slight recurve to the main hollow grind. Nice flat grind here up at the tanto nose. And then of course you have the false edge on the top, that big bold swedge, he actually brings it down quite far. This is a really impressive grind, and this is why, while I love all of Kirby's work, I had to have an MGT of something, of whatever model, for my very first Lambert. I'd actually passed on another knife earlier in the month because it wasn't an MGT. I had to have the multi-grind Tanto. And what I love is you have a different personality on the other side. And again, the grind lines, the bevels, everything is done masterfully. He does such an amazing job all the way around. And I love this profile. This profile is very similar, for those of you that have seen my video on my Greg Lightfoot. And it's actually not a coincidence, because one of Kirby's influences and one of his mentors as he began knife making, one of them actually was Kirby Lambert. I'm sorry, it was Greg Lightfoot. So you can definitely see some of that influence in these very complex grinds. Now, obviously, Kirby wasn't the very first person to do a compound grind, but he certainly was one of the early adopters. And it almost seems like everybody doing one now is trying to do it like him. I just love the way he does it. It is just flawless. And it's stupid sharp, insanely sharp. The man knows how to put a good edge on a knife. Now, I'm not sure on the blade steel on this one because Kirby actually works with a variety of steels. He seems to favor S30V and CPM 154, but he's also one of the few makers that still works with BG42. And a lot of Canadians are like that. Obviously, he's from Canada. Brian Ty still uses it. A few of the other guys still use it. It's not as big with U.S. makers anymore, but certainly the Canadians, they realize it's still a great steel. There's nothing wrong with it. So I'm thinking it's probably S30V or CPM 154. Now, if you buy one of his newer models that has the double fuller in it, a lot of those are CTX XHP. He started to use that as of late, and we all know that's another great high-performance steel. One of the things I noticed immediately upon playing with this is it is absolutely silky smooth. I put this up there with Rockstead, with Shirogorov. It is just super smooth and a very fast action. And it's funny because I've had a chance to very infrequently kind of message back and forth with Kirby. I got on his books. I'm a year out now, so hopefully in a year I can have something made. And I had planned on getting another Orion. Now that I've got this and I've felt this incredible action, you guys know I'm a huge flipper fan, I'm actually going to alter my order to do a Snap MGT. So the Snap MGT is basically this, but with a flipper. The size is deceiving. It is a 3.5-inch blade, but he's really using every bit of this frame to fit that blade into. There's not a lot of overhang there. So the handle feels smaller in the hand than you would expect for a knife this size. But here's the thing with the ergonomics that he's built into this, and it really is extraordinarily well thought out, and the contouring that's been done all the way around, it locks it into your hand like a really good tactical knife. It's a nice thick feel. He's using, like I said, very thick slabs of 6AL4V titanium, and when you put this in your hand, it's a fistful. For me, from my sized hand, this is absolutely perfect. Let's give some quick size comparisons here, some side-by-sides on other 3.5-inch knives. There it is up against the Curtis F3. You guys know I like to go butt to butt. Giggity. So there it is. It certainly dwarfs the F3, but we all know the F3 uses a very short handle. And he's also using a much taller blade profile than Dave Curtis is here too. Another one of my absolute favorites that you guys have seen several times is my Rockstead. And the Rockstead is just, and I mean just a touch, just a little bit larger than the Lambert. Let's scoot this up. My Tough Knives Tough Tannic number 3. The Tannic is overall a little bit shorter. I know some guys like to go pivot to pivot, but when you have sizes that are going to be so much different, then it's a little shorter in the blade and a little shorter in the butt, and you really can't get a real size, perspective for it. So you really have to go tip to tip or butt to butt and really see what the overall length is. And we'll throw one more in there that might be the closest, and that's my custom Jason Browse reloader with the C-Tech. They are nearly identical in the sizes, not only in the overall length, but also in the height of the overall knife and the blade profile. And they're also similar in the fact that they're both going to be compound grind tantos with a recurve. Obviously, Jason's being based off of a Mikkel Williamson design is a lot more aggressive in that, but it's still a very similar grind. And while I love my Browse, and there's no way to ever knock it, the grind is great and everything else, you've got a much more pronounced grind here on the Lambert. And as you see, everything is absolute precision. And this is not machine cut. I want to be very clear about this. He is grinding all of these by hand. And to get this level of precision, it's no wonder why it's going to take you a while to get your hands on one when you order one from Kirby, because everything is going to be perfect. One of the other things that came out of my conversation with Todd Begg last night was just a little bit more of an education on what to really look for when you're trying to determine if a knife is of high quality when you're talking about custom knives. We were discussing lockup and stuff like that, and if there's any blade play laterally or up and down. And he says the one thing that you want to do, he goes, a lot of times knife makers can cheat things, and you won't have any of that side-to-side play when the lock is engaged. He goes, the true test of the quality of the fitment of the blade is if you disengage the lock and then test for that. And this has absolutely, and I'll get in there nice and tight, absolutely no side-to-side play with the lock bar disengaged. Now that's a trick I didn't know about. So that I'll be doing on pretty much every knife that I ever receive, just to double check for that. And he says another thing to look for is, he goes, look at the lock face. See if I can get this to focus. And he says, if you've got a well-finished lock face on the back side of the blade, then the knife maker really does care about the fit and finish of the entire knife overall. It's a small detail that's usually left kind of rough because it really doesn't matter. It's something that's not really going to be scrutinized or looked at very much. Now again, this was not brand spanking new off of Kirby's bench, but Bob takes very good care of his knives, and you'll see nice finish work throughout every component throughout this entire knife. As I mentioned before, the fitment of the materials is fantastic. Lightning strike carbon fiber is a material I'm starting to get away from for two reasons. One, we all know the little burrs from the copper wires come out and they can get pokey and be a pain in the ass. Number two, it is the most imperfect carbon fiber material that you can get. You will see pits. There's a little pit right there that you can barely see. And it's just not an overall wonderfully uniform material to work with. I know some makers that have stopped working with it entirely. They refuse to touch it. And I will say there are very few cavities in these bolsters. He did a great job selecting good pieces of lightning strike and contouring it and finishing it perfectly. Excellent, excellent job. The G10, not the hardest material to work with, but his is very smooth, feels great in the hand, and again, perfectly contoured and perfectly matched to all the rest of the components. The clip, I was very fortunate. I shot Kirby a message last night before the knife arrived today, and I said, hey, could you do me a favor? The knife I'm getting, it's in perfect condition except for the clip. I'd love to purchase another clip from you, and actually I'd like to get a satin clip that has your Spider logo on it. And he says, you know what, no problem. He goes, you don't have to pay for it. I'll be happy to send it out to you. Just enjoy the knife, and I hope you really like it, and I'll get one in the mail to you. So in a few days, I'm going to have the new clip, and I'll just swap that out, and it's pretty much just going to be a brand new knife after that. His hardware, everything's nice and clean. You know, it's not the fanciest, prettiest hardware, but that's just on this particular model. He does some beautiful two-tone anodized hardware now, just crazy, crazy stuff. I've seen him do some crazy thumb studs, some with, tritium inserts and whatnot. So really the sky is the limit as far as what he's capable of doing. He works with a variety of very exotic materials. He'll work with mokutai and Timascus. He's an absolute artist. He's a wonderful machinist. He creates complete works of art. The tolerances are tight, but nothing feels overly done. Like I said, the action is perfectly smooth, but you have zero play in anything. The jimping is flawless. Great size, great angle on the thumb ramp. It puts your hand exactly where it needs to be. It's not abusive on your finger. You'll lock into it, but it doesn't cut into you like some knives do. His tolerances are extraordinarily tight, but there's no risk of rubbing. As we look down here, we see we have plenty of space between the edge of the blade and the standoffs, but it's still very close. Look how tight that is right down there at this standoff. You don't have to worry about it hitting that standoff. I've had 2 knives in the past year that I've purchased that the blades actually hit the standoff. That's not a good thing, and that's something that should never, ever, ever, ever leave anybody's shop. That's like knife making 101 right there. So obviously I'm not going to disclose who made those 2 knives. That's been rectified and I'm not worried about it, but still shouldn't have happened. His level, his attention to detail is astounding. It's in the league of when you get into Mayo, when you get into Southard, makers like that don't even make a knife as low as well, actually you can if you get, direct price, you can get some Mayos for 800. So I don't want to say that, but these are makers that are obviously going for a lot more money. I heard a rumor last year that Kirby's prices are going to be going up. I didn't ask him. I have no idea. I don't see why they wouldn't. I think that he's at that level where everybody knows his quality, and he could certainly command higher prices. I don't see why this isn't at least $1,000 in these somewhat basic materials. I mean, yeah, if you get into mokutai and stuff like that, it's going to go up a hell of a lot anyway. But his quality level is up there with some of the best makers that I've ever seen. This isn't presentation grade or anything like that. This is meant to be a pocketable, everyday EDC that you're not afraid to use, that's going to stand up to regular daily use and abuse. Things aren't going to start loosening up and getting all wonky because he built the knife right from the beginning. So if you've ever been curious, you've seen Kirby Lamberts on various dealer sites, you've seen videos and pictures, and you've always wondered, are they worth the hype? Because there's hype around a lot of makers. Rick Hinderer, I've done a whole series of videos about that. Please go check that out. There's hype that surrounds certain makers and manufacturers, and sometimes they live up to the hype and sometimes they don't. This is one I would tell you, if you don't have a Kirby Lambert, you need to own one. I mean, it's an absolute requirement. And I feel that now it's a little, I can justify it a little bit more calling myself a collector now that I finally have one. And like I said, I'm on his books for another, and I can very easily see myself caving in when I see one available, whether it be a collector selling it or sitting on a website. I definitely see myself probably owning 5 or 6 different Lamberts. I tend to like the larger ones. He makes some smaller ones. I'm just not going to be into a 3 1/4 inch blade and stuff like that. But getting into the Snap or some more Orions, abso-freaking-lutely. Of course, I'm going to drive him nuts with the requests that I made on my custom. So we'll see what happens with that. I'll probably get half of what I asked for because I'm nutty like that. So I would tell you this, if you get the chance to own one and you can afford to do it, you can justify the expense, then do it. Because what you're going to get is a premium product and a prime example of what knife making is really all about. There are a lot of knives in the same price range that you would purchase this for. And sometimes that decision can be difficult when you're looking at 2 or 3 great reputable makers, some great looking knives. They're all the same price and you can only afford one. If one of them happens to be a Kirby Lambert, do it. By all means, do it. All right, guys, I'm going to let it go at that. I'm going to kind of cut this one a little bit short. There is more that I'd like to talk about, but my camera's been really goofy lately, and it wants to cut me off at about 23 minutes, and I'm just now hitting 20 minutes at this second. So I'm going to let this go. Congratulations to everybody that's got one, and thank you for pushing me in this direction. Thank you to Bob, who really was kind of the last person to just go, just friggin' do it. I feel very fortunate to own it, and I don't think this is one that's really ever going to leave my collection. If you're looking for perfection, this is absolutely one of the very few knives, and you guys know this about me. I don't use the word perfection very often. I've used it on Todd Begg for the Bodega. I used it for Una on my Heart II, and I used it for Rockstead, and that's pretty much it. And I own, I think, some fairly decent knives. This one is complete and utter perfection. So if you're on the search for perfection, you don't want to spend $1,500, $2,000 to get it, that's the way to go. All right, guys, good night, and I will talk to you soon.